Hello, Starshine. My name is Liz, and this is my channel, Simsational Stories. If you have not seen my videos before and you enjoy this one, please like and subscribe. And maybe check out my Facebook page, where this whole thing began, as well. All relevant links are in the description below, and of course, if you're a Sims player and you'd like to download any of the characters featured in my stories, just search the hashtag Simsational Stories on the Sims 4 gallery. All original content is created by This Is Not Eric. Alrighty then. So, welcome. And what is up, Buttercup? Are you having a good day or a bad day? Whichever your answer, please allow me to distract you from your life and tell you a story, a Simsational story. Before I begin though, I'd like to issue this blanket content and trigger warning. The following story is just Sims, hey. I'm not going to apologise for treating them terribly, if that's what I've done. But I do want to assure you now that although I mean absolutely no harm, I completely understand if you feel unable to consume my content. Many loves, and we will catch each other on the internet elsewhere. Okay, so now we've gotten that over with, let's go. Today's story is from the Fundamentalist Ferguson family, and we're at chapter 3. If you have not seen previous chapters and would like to catch up, there are playlists available on my channel so you can hear the entire story in chronological order. The rest of us are going to move on from where we left off last time though. So without further ado, young Esther Ferguson was only 3 years old, and already things were complicated. She was growing up in a different world to many other Sim girls her age, being raised by conservative religious parents Cameron and Addison, and although she was still just a toddler, already she was expected to conform to certain gender norms that just weren't coming naturally to her. Esther's twin brother Elijah was also given different expectations based on his gender. While Esther was given dolls and dollhouses to play with, Elijah had blocks and flashcards. They may have been born together, but they were very different people already, with Elijah possessing an altogether far more obedient little soul than Esther. He couldn't understand why she was always getting herself in trouble. Addison couldn't understand the situation either. She herself had been an only child, and so she had had no brothers to be jealous of. But even if she'd had them, she couldn't imagine wanting to play with their toys or learn things when she could play mother instead. Addison had always wanted to be a mother, and she'd looked forward to having a daughter so very much. But this wasn't what she had expected. It was around this time that Cameron began to have a more involved role in his children's upbringing. It was obvious that Addison was struggling to discipline Esther. And was disciplinarian not a large part of a father's role in the family? Of course, that wasn't all there was. Cameron knew that to command one's children's obedience, one also had to command their love, and so he took to commissioning both their love and obedience with a passion akin to that which he took to work and worship. Cameron began his campaign by instituting regular story time with the twins, 3 times a week. He was hoping that by using choice parables and fables, he would be able to instill the morals and values he and his wife so deeply believed in, into his children's hearts and minds, as well as engaging with their imaginations. The children really looked forward to this rare alone time with their busy father, and that was, of course, exactly what Cameron wanted. Cameron also began to have weekly Bible studies with the whole family. The twins were still too young to go to the community worship ceremony that ran each Sunday morning, but Cameron wanted to be sure to instill a strong foundation of religion in them as early as possible. Therefore, he held his own ceremony each Sunday after he and Addison returned. They hired a babysitter to care for the twins while they went. His own father had done the same thing when he was growing up, and it had served as the backbone of his belief system. Another important aspect of family Bible study was touching base at the end of each week. If the twins had misbehaved, this was the time that they were encouraged to confess, and thus earn a lesser punishment for the sins they had committed against their mother, father, and God. As, after the floor was closed to them, Addison would then begin her own reflection of the week's events and her own regrets or shortcomings. And it didn't serve the twins well if they left out something that their mother then mentioned. Of course, providing they actually confessed, Cameron would always absolve Addison and the children, should they choose to come forward with anything, of their trespasses against him, their family, or God, almost as soon as the words left their mouths. But the ceremony was still important. Quite often, the things Addison felt regret over were so minor he normally wouldn't have even encouraged her mentioning them. But as they wanted the children to be as obedient as possible as they grew up, he would instead praise her for her absolute commitment to attaining perfection. Things seemed to improve with Cameron's firm guiding hands on the reins of the family. Esther was no longer testing her mother's boundaries as much, and Elijah had responded to his father's increased presence in the home with a blossoming confidence his parents loved seeing in him. They could tell that both twins appreciated and took in the way Addison deferred to Cameron, and were beginning to mirror those dynamics in their own interactions. As things began to settle a little with Esther, Addison wasn't surprised to find herself suffering with morning sickness once again. For surely it was only natural that now that they had found their rhythm as parents, they would be blessed again. The idea of having a babe attached at the hip while chasing after the growing twins was, of course, a little daunting, but Addison was confident she would be up for the challenge. She would not have been given it otherwise. Cameron, too, was confident. They hadn't planned this pregnancy any more than their first. But that didn't matter. God had planned them all. Every event in their life was predestined, and they had faith that He knew what He was doing. The Fergusons hadn't planned to have twins either, but it had all worked out in the end. Cameron's success at work, combined with Addison's successful online Plopsy store, more than provided for their needs, and they could afford this. Telling the twins was exciting too. Addison wasn't entirely sure that they really understood, and the whole thing had led to a rather uncomfortable discussion about where babies came from. But she thought they almost got it. She was going to have a baby, a little brother or sister for them to play with and look after, and all they had to do was wait for Mummy and God to finish making him/her. And that brings us to the end of Chapter 3 of the Fundamentalist Ferguson family. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe so you can tune in soon to hear the next chapter. Or like I said, look us up on Facebook. Bye!